Crossing lines. Eliza Perez clutched the frayed strap of her worn backpack, her heart thundering in her chest, as the elongated shadows of the San Diego hills stretched ominously across the arid desert floor. The coyotes, the human smugglers, had abandoned them hours earlier, gesturing vaguely northward with empty assurances of Los Angeles esta cerca, or Los Angeles is close. Alone and weary, she trudged forward, each step a painful reminder of the grueling journey from Guatemala. Her thoughts drifted to Julio, her older brother, who had ventured ahead years ago, his voice echoing in her mind as he urged her to join him, promising a brighter future in America. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, a sudden beam of light swept across the ground, and Eliza froze in her tracks. Emerging from the shadows was a tall figure clad in a border patrol uniform. To her surprise, the officer was not white or Latino, but Asian. The officer, named Eric Santos, was Filipino-American, the son of immigrants. Although protocol demanded he detain her, something in Eliza's eyes, in her story, resonated deeply with his own family's struggles when they first arrived in the U.S. He spoke in Spanish. "Are you alone?" he asked, his Spanish awkward yet kind. She nodded silently.
¿Estás sola? ¿De dónde vienes?
Sí, Guatemala.
Eric exhaled sharply. He switched to English, more for himself than for her. Jesus, all that way. He saw the cracks in her hands, the trembling lips. His hand reached into his pack and pulled out a water bottle.
Here, drink. You look. It's okay. You're safe right now.
He caught himself. She's not a criminal, she's just tired. Eliza drank, her eyes never leaving his. In the rising sun, their shadows stretched long beside each other. Two lives, two worlds, crossing. Instead of arresting her, he offered her water, a jacket to shield against the cold, and eventually a ride to a safe house nestled near the border. In the weeks that followed, he discreetly assisted her journey to Los Angeles, where she longed to reunite with Julio. Their unexpected bond blossomed into something neither had anticipated, a tender romance forged in the crucible of survival and compassion. Los Angeles sprawled like a vast quilt, stitched together with patches of hope and fear. Julio Perez toiled tirelessly through long, grueling shifts on a farm nestled outside the city's bustling heart, diligently sending money back to their parents in Guatemala. Eliza secured under-the-table work, scrubbing and tidying houses, each day navigating the precarious tightrope of undocumented life. The ever-present threat of ICE raids loomed ominously over them, like a dark, churning storm cloud, casting a shadow on every moment. One fateful night, the thrum of helicopters reverberated above their neighborhood, a harbinger of chaos. Doors were violently kicked in, and ICE agents surged through the streets with an intimidating presence. Julio and Eliza slipped away through the narrow confines of a back alley, seeking refuge in the musty, dimly lit basement of a church alongside others in their plight. Yet, this sanctuary was fleeting. Just days later, Julio was ensnared at work, swiftly caught in the merciless gears of the deportation process. Eliza was left devastated, her heart shattered, and her spirit teetering between fear of returning to Guatemala and the terror of staying. Her solace came in the form of Eric, who stood by her whenever he could. Torn between his responsibilities as a border patrol officer and the blossoming love he felt for her, he became her flicker of hope in a world fraught with uncertainty. After Julio was deported, Eliza was at her lowest. Eric found her sitting in the corner of a small room, eyes red from crying. He mumbled,
Eliza, I'm so sorry.
He's gone. Just like that.
We'll figure this out.
You say that like you believe it. But I see the fear in your eyes too, Eric. You're one of them. And I'm just another illegal.
Don't say that. I don't care about papers. I care about you.
She touched his face, tracing the outline of the badge still pinned to his shirt. This badge, someday it could mean you have to arrest me. He covered her hand with his own. Not if I can help it. The air was thick with tension, like an impending storm, when Eric's sister, Elsa, discovered the truth about Eliza. Elsa, a relentless and determined prosecutor in the bustling city of Los Angeles, was known for her fierce dedication to upholding immigration laws. She stood proudly within the MAGA circles, firmly believing that undocumented immigrants siphoned off resources and posed a threat to American jobs. To Elsa, any display of compassion was a sign of vulnerability and weakness. During a family dinner, the topic turned political over lumpia and adobo. The atmosphere was taut as Eric decided to confront Elsa. The clinking of cutlery and the low murmur of conversation faded into the background as he spoke up. Eric began, his voice steady but charged with emotion.
You know, Mom and Dad were undocumented when they first arrived. They overstayed their visas, worked without papers, and lived in fear, just like Eliza.
Elsa's eyes flared with defiance as she retorted sharply, "That was different. They became citizens the right way."
But only after they broke the law first. How can you forget where we came from?
The law is the law. If you break it, you pay the price. Simple.
Simple? Like Mom and Dad? You think they had it easy?
That's different. They didn't sneak across the border.
No, they just overstayed a visa and worked under fake names for years. But that was okay because they were our parents, right?
Don't twist this into some sob story. This country can't take care of everyone. Americans could do those jobs if they wanted to.
Would you? Would you go pick strawberries in 100-degree heat for $5 an hour? This isn't about laws for you, Elsa. It's about fear. Fear of people who look like Julio. People who look like Mom and Dad used to.
Elsa protested. "That's not fair." "Neither is tearing families apart," Eric responded. The heated exchange left a palpable crack in the fabric of their family, one that wouldn't easily mend. The room fell silent, the unresolved tension hanging heavily in the air, leaving a lingering sense of division that would take time and effort to heal. Julio's deportation and others like him was not merely a personal tragedy. It sent shockwaves through the local economy. The farm where he toiled day after day under the relentless, scorching sun found itself in dire straits, unable to find replacements, willing to endure the grueling labor for the meager wages offered. The once vibrant fields of produce stood desolate, crops left to wither and rot under the unyielding heat. One by one, other farms succumbed to the same fate, shuttering their doors as despair settled over the agricultural community. In Los Angeles, the cost of fresh produce soared, striking a harsh blow to low-income families who struggled to make ends meet. Then, as if nature itself conspired against them, the wildfires swept through the region. Entire neighborhoods, already teetering on the brink of survival, were engulfed by flames, forcing countless residents to flee. Those undocumented individuals who remained found themselves trapped in a web of fear, too terrified to seek refuge or assistance. The city's already fragile economy shivered under the weight of these calamities, leaving the working class, both native-born and immigrant alike, to bear the brunt of the devastation. Ironically, Elsa's firm and unwavering stance on immigration issues shattered unexpectedly when her longtime Bosnian boyfriend, Omar Petrovic, was caught in an ICE sweep and arrested. Elsa had never thought to inquire about his immigration status. She had always assumed that Omar, with his quiet demeanor and his thick Eastern European accent, had his papers in order. He didn't. The sight of Omar in an orange jumpsuit, sitting forlornly behind a glass window at a sterile detention center, caused something deep inside Elsa to fracture. The cold, hard seat beneath him and the stark, fluorescent lighting above him only added to the harsh reality she could no longer ignore. Suddenly, immigration was no longer an abstract policy fight for her. It became deeply personal. It was intertwined with love and accompanied by a profound sense of loss. The vibrant connection she shared with Omar now felt distant and threatened, transforming her perspective entirely. Unable to secure any legal status for Eliza, Eric made a bold and life-altering decision. They would leave everything behind. He had always harbored a deep desire to visit the land of his parents' birth, the vibrant and culturally rich Philippines. Together, Eric and Eliza boarded a plane, leaving behind the familiar landscape of their old life in search of a fresh start across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. As they stepped off the plane in Manila, the warm, dense air wrapped around them like a heavy embrace. The scent of tropical blooms and the sounds of the bustling city filled the air. Eliza squeezed Eric's hand tightly, a silent acknowledgement that their struggle was far from over, but at least now they could face it side by side, legally, and with their dignity intact. The smell of grilled street food drifted by. Eliza looked around in wonder. Meanwhile, back in Los Angeles, Elsa stood alone in her empty apartment, the silence pressing in on her as she gazed at a photograph of Omar. Her brother's words resonated in her mind, a comforting reminder that compassion isn't a sign of weakness. Sometimes, it is the very thing that preserves our humanity, giving us strength when everything else seems uncertain. Compassion and justice are interconnected elements woven into the fabric of humanity. The experiences of a single immigrant family can impact neighbors, communities, and even those tasked with upholding the law. Ultimately, the way a society cares for its most vulnerable members reveals its true character.